Dr. John has a PhD in higher education and also a PhD in counseling. And so anytime those two intersect, we really get into a great discussion. And he sent me an article this morning and said, let's talk about this here on the air.
So hat tip to the guys at Marginal Revolution. I love those guys. So it's a paper from the National Bureau of Economic Research. Dinerstein and Yanellis and Chen. Here's the study. So most people don't know this, but when it comes to student loans, we'll distill it down, but there's two different paths a college can take.
Let's just, as I'm saying, this is a white paper.
A white paper, yeah, there you go.
This is not an article on Yahoo Finance by some Yahoo.
Yeah, this is a research paper.
This is actually a research paper by a nerd, by Egghead.
Several of my nerd friends.
Several of your nerd friends.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's two separate paths. One of the paths is the government makes the loans, and the other is the bank makes the loans and the government guarantees them. For the average borrower, you're never going to know which one of these paths your college took. But when Biden, I think it was Biden, maybe even Trump, did the first pause on student loan repayment, it instantly created a pretty cool study that could be done, because you had a group of people. Biden couldn't pause the bank loans because he didn't have the authority, because it was the banks that made the loans, but he could pause the loans that the government made. And so these researchers came in and said, what actually happened there? And Dave, I was sending emails to Dave this morning as I was going through the math on this thing. At the end of the day, they found that the payment pause helped for about 30 seconds. And the people who had to keep making their loan payments did not have any increase in defaults. They didn't have any increase in their life falling apart. The words I kept coming to is they figured it out. Conversely, those that were beneficiary of the pause ended with more debt than they started with. And I just have to keep reading that and reading that and reading that, because Dave, I remember Twitter tried to set you on fire when you said that $1,300 isn't going to change your life. It's not. Or $600 isn't going to change your life. And what they're saying is, actually, that pause made it worse. People took the money that was in cash that they weren't sending to student loans, and they went and put it on down payments for more debt. So it looked like a great political move. It helped for a few months, and then it got bad.
So everyone's life is going to fall apart because of COVID, and you cannot afford to pay your student loans. So we, the government, are here to help you. We're going to put your student loans on pause. The net result is that people took that pause and used it to go further into debt, proving that they were not in much trouble to start with.
Or that they had the capacity now to get in even more trouble.
Exactly. Here's the note from the actual white paper. Comparing borrowers whose loans were frozen with borrowers whose loans were not frozen due to differences in whether the government owned the loans, we show that borrowers used the new liquidity to increase borrowing on credit cards, mortgages, and auto loans rather than to avoid delinquencies. So the narrative was, we are here to help you poor people who have had your lives destroyed by COVID, and you're not going to have to make your payments because we know you're starving to death. And everyone said, hold my beer, I'm going to go buy a car.
Sweet, now I can get a car.
Sweet, now I can get a car. That's exactly what the net result of this is.
Here's the line. By the end of the sample period, student debt borrowers have about 5% more household debt
than the ones that did not get the government help of the pause.
Perhaps paradoxically, temporary student debt relief leads to higher overall household debt levels and larger future debt burdens.
This is good news for debt pauses as stimulus payments, but bad news if you think that debt pauses are just the nudge people need to get their financial house in order. None of them did, statistically.
Wow.
They went further in the hole. So, once again, your government interferes in the economy, and once again, they screwed it up.
Well, I think this is a good moment for me to say I was wrong. Because I remember when you said it's not going to help save your life, and I thought to myself, I think it will. I think it'll make a huge difference. And Dave, in front of America,
glad you kept that to yourself.
I did. I
would have made fun of you.
I was a new employee here, but I think it's fair to say I was wrong, man.
Well, I mean, the point is,
it didn't work.
The point is not a philosophical let them eat cake statement when you say $1,300 doesn't change your life. But really, I mean, if you are at the poverty level, $15,000 a year, $1,300 is not even 10% of your income. So mathematically, the arithmetic says $1,300, if it changes your life, you really have already a major screwed up life long before COVID came along.
Yeah.
And it doesn't fix it.
Yeah, you got some pretty dark challenges.
It is one more time the government saying they are doing something, and that was a different thing. That was a Biden bucks. Okay. It was $1,300 that set Dave Ramsey's on fire all over, effigies all over Reddit and everywhere else. And poor, Dave Ramsey's just one of those people that doesn't have any compassion and whatever. Oh crap! It's just It's an observation of the obvious. I had a college professor that told me one time, he said, Mr. Ramsey, you have a firm grasp on the obvious. Little did he know I was going to make a living doing that. But yeah, so there you go. I do have a firm grasp on the obvious.
The meta I took away from this nerd paper, and this just for y'all listening, these kind of nerd papers make my heart beat a little bit faster. I love them. I think this lesson is applicable to my marriage. It's applicable to raising kids. It's applicable to being a good neighbor. It's applicable to my finances. There is no such thing as I'll deal with it later. That doesn't exist. It's a false premise that I can kick a can down a road on any issue in my life. Pain deferred is pain amplified, man. And the more we kick stuff down the road, the bigger mess we are making. And I think it's an ethical issue when we are, A, knowingly putting hurting people into more pain down the road, or B, we are making our grandkids that we've never met yet have to deal with this chaos, man. It's just unethical. It's evil.
Debt ceiling raise.
It's evil.
Here we go again. They're going to do it again. Let's just go further in debt. Because none of those people voting on it are ever going to pay any of it. Because they're going to be dead.
Zero.
They're going to be dead. Most of them are almost dead now. They're so old. But yeah, unbelievable. But yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, it is unethical. And the thing though, Dr. Les Parrott, our friend, we've spoken with him a bunch of times. He's been on Smart Conference a bunch of times, and he always says, these negative emotions, these negative situations, whatever they are, whether they're mathematical, whether they're relational, whether it's a career decision, you kick the can down the road. This stuff has, his famous phrase is, it has a high rate of resurrection.
It will be back.
I will be back. Yeah, I'm coming back. And so, don't let the sun go down on your anger. Sit down with your spouse and get this straightened out. It will be back. You can't sweep it on the rug. It's not going to go away. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. That splinter, if you don't pull it, will fester, and gangrene will set in. We'll have to amputate your whole arm because you wouldn't pull this one little sliver of wood out of your finger.
Or something scary, your job is taken away from you overnight. Tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., you got to be on the phone finding something else to do. You got to be on that computer finding another work. You got to figure it out. And I hate saying that because it sounds so callous, but it's me trying to tell you I love you, and I think you can figure it out.
Well, step straight into the difficult things.
Man, go run into the storm.
Do hard things.
Yes.
Michael Easter, Comfort Crisis. Do hard things. Step straight into them. It changes your brain chemistry.
Yeah, and what Michael would say, which I think is so true, is if you do hard things on the regular as a part of your life, if you're constantly not running away from a conversation you'd have with your wife, but you're leaning into it, if you're constantly stepping into challenging moments with your kids, constantly like doing things like exercising and not going for that extra dessert, when something like this hits, your brain and body are ready to run into the storm. You've been training them, right? When you just take the stairs, right? You're training your body and your mind over time so that when hard things hit, bring it on. Let's go do this.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But if you've been avoiding everything else and you get the opportunity to avoid this, I'll kick this can down the road. See, those of you that are kicking your student loan can down the road right now and you're not dealing with it, we're talking to you for the last 5 minutes.
It is coming for you.
This is not good for you. It's not good for you. We've been saying this. A, you owe the money, and B, it's not going away until you pay it. This is The Ramsey Show.